Who wants to watch news 24 hours a day? When CNN debuted in 1980, skeptics doubted its survival, questioning the appeal of a dedicated news channel, especially one with limited financial resources. But that's yesterday's news. By 2023, CNN's estimated net worth had climbed to over $2.3 billion. Despite record low viewership and ratings, the network still pulled in $1.8 billion in annual revenue. That's nearly $5 million a day. So, CNN is still in business, at least for now. But how do they do it? We'll explain on today's episode of The Infographic Show. Let's face it, broadcast television is declining as a primary source of entertainment and information. When CNN launched, cable TV was on the rise, poised to replace newspapers and radio as the dominant media source. CNN in particular made history as the first national TV network dedicated to 24/7 news coverage. Before that, news was only available in scheduled TV broadcasts, on the radio at set intervals, or in newspapers the next day. CNN changed everything, bringing the news, both national and international, to audiences whenever they wanted it. This allowed the network to grow to the giant that it is, or at least was. However, the news industry is undergoing another major shift, this time towards streaming networks, and the data proves it. In 2010, around 105 million U.S. households had cable TV. By last year, that number had plummeted to 70 million, a 33% decline in just 13 years. But here's where it gets interesting. TV ownership itself hasn't declined. In fact, according to Statista, the number of U.S. households with TVs has steadily increased, reaching an estimated 125 million. YouTube, Netflix, even Twitch, and podcasts have all become preferred methods of both entertainment and getting news. The benefit for these platforms, as well as social media like X or TikTok, is that viewers don't have to wait for specific news broadcasts to get the latest information. It's usually available somewhere online, and then it's distributed through social media and short-form video channels. Naturally, this puts news networks like CNN in a tough spot. With fewer cable subscribers, their traditional audience is shrinking fast. And yet, despite the decline, CNN has continued to report a relatively healthy profit in recent years. So, how are they pulling it off? There are several different sources of income a cable TV company like CNN can have. Most of them are actually quite reliable, so long as the network has some amount of steady viewership. The first revenue stream is cable subscription fees, also known as carriage or distribution fees. Cable TV providers like Verizon or AT&T sign agreements with networks to carry their channels in their cable packages. In return, a portion of each customer's subscription fee goes to the networks included in the package. Essentially, if you have cable, you're paying for all the channels on the service whether you watch them or not. There's no option to opt out of so-called basic channels, which is why networks like CNN continue to make money, even as viewership declines. The exact amount CNN earns from a cable subscription fee remains undisclosed. CNN's revenue from these fees is bundled into larger carriage agreements negotiated with cable providers, and these details are highly confidential. As a result, there's no straightforward figure detailing how much CNN collects per provider. However, some reports provide insight into CNN's earnings from carriage fees. In 2020, one estimate suggested CNN made over $1 billion from these fees alone. When compared to its total profit for that year, that means over 40% of CNN's revenue came directly from carriage agreements. But here's where it gets interesting. Carriage fees don't just affect networks, they also impact consumers. As cable providers negotiate higher fees with networks, the cost of cable TV packages rises in response. If you've noticed your cable bill creeping up over the years, you're not alone. It seems like every time you check your statement, there's a new fee or an increase in the base rate. One reason for these rising costs is the steep price tag attached to popular content. Networks are shelling out more than ever for the rights to hit shows, live sports, and exclusive programming that keeps the viewers coming back. That cost of securing those coveted rights often gets passed directly on to the subscribers. But it's not just the content that's driving up the prices. Cable providers have to invest heavily in new technology and upgrade their infrastructure to keep up with modern demands. Whether it's installing better equipment or expanding network capacities, these improvements come with a hefty price tag. As providers work to ensure smoother streaming and clearer picture quality, those expenses eventually show up on your monthly bill. Even everyday operational costs like customer support and cybersecurity aren't immune to inflation. Over time, all of these factors combine, creating a cumulative effect that drives cable TV prices upward. So what was once a $20 or $40 subscription can easily become a few $100s. According to AllConnect, the average monthly cable package is an astounding $122 per month. That outpaces practically every other utility cost for the average household. There's also the pressure from streaming services, which has pushed traditional cable companies to evolve. In order to remain competitive, they've started offering more on-demand content, cloud DVR options, and integrated streaming platforms. While these new features offer greater flexibility and convenience, they also add layers of expense that end up being reflected in higher subscription fees. The pressure from streaming companies is also likely one of the significant contributors to lowered viewership rates for cable TV. Why pay a cable carrier hundreds of dollars for channels you won't even watch when you could pay a streaming service directly for a much more carefully curated list of programs or channels? This creates another problem altogether. If the price of the subscription becomes too high for the average consumer, chances are they'll switch to a different service altogether. This is a part of the trend where social media channels and streaming services replace cable TV. That leads to lower viewership numbers for cable TV, which reduces the potential for profit for each of the networks that a carrier has a contract with. The profitability of carrier fees comes down to economies of scale. As mentioned earlier, CNN's carriage fee earnings were estimated at around $1 billion. However, like most cable networks, CNN faces significant operating costs. Producing shows requires a consistent number of staff, resources, and production quality, leading to relatively stable expenses. Meanwhile, carrier fee revenue is directly tied to how many subscribers a cable provider has. If subscription numbers decline, so does the money CNN collects from carrier fees. But none of the carrier fees are actually dependent on how many people are watching CNN specifically. The carrier fee system is based on contracts between cable providers and TV networks, where providers pay networks a fee per subscriber in exchange for carrying their channel. The idea behind bundling multiple channels into single cable packages is simple. The more channels available, the more attractive the service appears. Even if most subscribers never watch certain channels, providers still count them and they pay the networks accordingly. But this creates a delicate balancing act. Cable providers must carefully negotiate contracts to maximize profits for both parties. If subscription fees are set too high, customers may leave for cheaper alternatives. If they're set too low, profits shrink, making it difficult to cover operational costs. So who watches CNN on cable TV? Well, while there are fewer and fewer people watching the news on cable, cable companies can somewhat accurately gauge the demographics that watch particular channels. This brings us to the concept of ratings and shares on TV. You probably heard about a channel or a network that has seen its rating share drop by X percentage or increase by another one. This is usually the result of a significant news event or an addition to the channel's programming lineup. But what do those numbers mean? Ratings and audience shares are measured primarily by Nielsen Media Research, the company that has tracked television viewership since 1950. A TV rating refers to the percentage of total U.S. households that are watching a specific program at a given time. For example, if CNN's primetime show scores a 0.5 rating, that means 0.5% of all U.S. households with televisions were tuned into that program. On the other hand, TV share is slightly different. It measures the percentage of televisions that were actually turned on at the time and were tuned into a specific program. If CNN's Anderson Cooper 360 has a 2 share, it means 2% of all TVs were on that at that moment while watching CNN. The difference is crucial because while overall TV ownership remains high, not every household is actively watching television at any given moment. Nielsen gathers this data using a mix of technology and self-reporting. One of the primary tools is the People Meter, an electronic device installed in sample households to automatically record what's being watched. Nielsen also collects data from cable and satellite set-top boxes, which can track viewership trends on a much larger scale. Occasionally, Nielsen uses traditional viewer diaries, asking people to manually log what they watched, but this method has become less common with digital tracking tools. The sample size for Nielsen is around 40,000 households and 100,000 people, randomly chosen so they adequately represent the general demographic ratios in the country. While this is only a small fraction of the total U.S. population, it is a much more significant sample size than many other surveys that are typically performed and can provide valuable insight. This comes into play as CNN continues to hit rock bottom in terms of ratings and audience shares. One of the most notable changes was the post-election lull. CNN is one of the most prolific election report networks and has long positioned itself as a leader in election night coverage, offering real-time results, expert analysis, and in-depth reporting. However, its reputation, accuracy, and audience trust have been the subjects of debate, especially in recent years as political polarization has increased. CNN's strengths in election coverage lie in its extensive live reporting and use of interactive data visualization. The network provides comprehensive election night programming with hours of continuous coverage, real-time vote counting, and expert discussions. Its Magic Wall, operated by John King, is one of its standout features, offering a detailed breakdown of county-by-county election results and interactive analysis of key races. The network also has a large reporting team stationed nationwide, providing on-the-ground insights that add context to the numbers. Additionally, CNN was often one of the first networks to call races using a combination of exit polling and early vote returns, helping viewers get election results faster. However, CNN's election coverage also has notable flaws. One of the most frequently cited criticisms is its perceived bias. Many conservatives argue that CNN leans left, leading to skepticism about the neutrality of its analysis. While CNN claims to be objective, some viewers, particularly on the right, prefer other sources like Fox News for election night updates. Another issue is CNN's declining ratings and trust amongst viewers. CNN's election coverage often includes long panel discussions featuring a mix of journalists, former politicians, and analysts who provide commentary. While this can be valuable, some feel these segments can focus too much on opinion rather than raw data. This has led to Fox News consistently outperforming CNN in election night ratings, particularly among conservative audiences, despite losing some credibility in recent years. As such, when the election ended, pretty much everyone switched the channel, as evidenced by the 45% drop in CNN's primetime ratings in the days after the election. This leaves most of its other programming to be watched by the older generations, ages 65 and up, with the key demographic of 18 to 49 being relatively absent from the network's rating statistics. But again, it matters little whether CNN is being actively watched, so long as it's on offer with multiple cable TV carriers. The carrier fee can be a solid income source, so long as cable TV ownership itself doesn't drop off a cliff. And there's another relatively stable income source that CNN and other networks have leveraged over the years: advertising. Cable TV networks like CNN generate ad revenue primarily through commercial advertising, which is sold to companies looking to promote their products and services to a targeted audience. The process isn't as simple as just airing commercials. There's a complex system behind how those ads are priced, placed, and measured for effectiveness. Even as traditional TV viewership declines, advertising remains a key revenue stream. Everyone watches advertisements since they are often in the middle of important or interesting programs and shows. So at the core of this system is the cost per thousands impressions model, or CPM, which determines how much an advertiser pays for every 1,000 viewers who sees their commercial. The more viewers a network attracts, particularly in key demographics like adults aged 25 to 54, the more money they can charge per ad spot. For example, if CNN's primetime ratings are strong, the network can demand higher rates for ad placements. But as ratings decline, so does the value of its commercial slots. If CNN charges a CPM of $10, that means advertisers pay $10 for every 1,000 viewers who see their ad. With 420,000 viewers, a 30-second ad spot would generate $4,200 per ad. Since a primetime CNN show can feature up to 10 minutes of ads per hour, with 20 to 30 different ads airing, the network could earn anywhere from $84,000 to $126,000 per hour just from commercials. Like many other major networks, CNN sells ads using a strategy called day parting, which divides the broadcast day into segments: early morning, daytime, primetime, and late night. Primetime, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., commands the highest ad rates since it's when TV viewership peaks. However, CNN's primetime ratings have dropped by 45% in recent years, making advertisers hesitant to pay premium prices. Instead, many companies are shifting their ad budgets to streaming platforms, YouTube, and social media, where engagement is higher, more targeted, and easier to measure, is something we'll discuss later. Another key factor in CNN's ad revenue strategy is sponsorship and branded content. Some segments, especially those featuring financial news, technology, or healthcare discussions, are sponsored by companies that want to align their brands with those topics. For example, a business-focused show might be brought to you by a major investment firm, subtly integrating the brand into the programming. This type of advertising allows CNN to generate revenue beyond traditional commercials, but it also raises concerns about maintaining journalistic independence. Despite these various revenue streams, CNN's advertising doesn't seem like it's going to work out in the long run. In early 2023, its ad revenue dropped by 39% compared to the same period the year before, a direct result of declining viewership. It's likely that this happened in 2024 too. Advertisers follow the audience, and as more people abandon traditional TV for streaming, CNN and other cable networks are losing a critical piece of their revenue. We keep mentioning YouTube and other streaming services for comparison. How does the ad revenue differ there? YouTube operates on a completely different system. Instead of selling fixed commercial slots, YouTube runs automated personalized ads before, during, and after videos. YouTube's algorithm places ads based on user behavior, meaning advertisers can target people with specific interests rather than just hoping they're watching a particular channel at a set time. YouTube creators earn revenue through the YouTube Partner Program, or YPP, which gives them 55% of ad revenue, while YouTube keeps 45%. That means that for every $10 an advertiser pays, the creator gets $5.50, and YouTube takes the rest. Unlike cable TV, where advertisers pay based on estimated viewership, YouTube's CPM fluctuates based on factors like engagement, user demographics, and ad demand. The entire process is automated using sophisticated bidding and auction systems where bots determine ad placements based on a video's content, audience behavior, and search history. If CNN were operating purely as a YouTube channel with the same audience size, 420,000 viewers per show, its earnings would be dramatically different. YouTube's average CPM ranges from $2 to $10, depending on the type of content. Assuming a $5 CPM generally, CNN would earn $2,100 per video with 420,000 views. This means CNN would have a significantly lower income stream if it were completely YouTube-based. To get even close to the same figure of $80,000 per hour, the network would have to make multiple videos per day, and each would have to get millions of views. And while this might be attainable for some YouTube channels, CNN's current viewership estimates fall significantly short of reaching that goal. We're also excluding YouTube Premium for now. While premium revenue technically replaces ad revenue for creators, it's paid out based on total watch time rather than individual ad views. There are around 100 million YouTube Premium subscribers, each paying $11.99 per month, generating $1.2 billion monthly. This revenue is then split among all creators based on how much of a subscriber's total watch time their content represents. For example, if a hypothetical YouTube CNN channel accounted for 1% of all watch time, it would receive 1% of premium revenue from those users, or around $12 million per month. So it's pretty clear that the cable TV model that's been in use for decades clearly favors CNN's relatively low viewership. It gives the network a steady supply of income, regardless of whether the shows get viewed often. This is, of course, so long as the network maintains a consistent quality. But that last part, quality, is where it gets tricky. CNN's declining viewership had its executives on edge, especially when compared to the rapid rise of streaming and social media. In early 2025, the network responded by laying off approximately 200 employees, roughly 6% of its workforce, as part of a strategic pivot toward digital platforms. While the layoffs mostly affected behind-the-scenes staff, the impact on programming quality and news coverage could be significant. Reducing staff can lead to a decrease in depth and breadth of news coverage. Having less personnel can result in a reduction of investigative reporting, diminished on-the-ground journalism, and a heavier reliance on syndicated content. This contraction could degrade the network's ability to provide comprehensive and timely news. Since that's practically CNN's ethos, it seems highly counterproductive to potentially reduce quality or variety in its programming. A decline in programming quality could trigger a vicious cycle for CNN. As content becomes less engaging, viewers turn elsewhere, leading to further drops in ratings. Lower audience numbers mean less advertising revenue, forcing the network to cut costs even more, often through additional layoffs. This type of cycle is called a positive feedback loop, not because it's beneficial, but because each action reinforces itself. More layoffs lead to worse content, which leads to fewer viewers, which leads to more layoffs. For CNN, this loop could spell serious trouble, not just for the network's long-term prospects, but for its remaining employees as well. In late 2024, CNN launched an online platform that delivered premium content, such as interviews, articles, and documentaries, to paying customers. The price of the subscription is a low $3.99 per month or $29.99 per year. The motive is obvious. More people are watching the news and reading articles online, so it makes sense to transfer a part of CNN's content there. Additionally, the web content makes CNN more crawlable by search engines, allowing it to appear in organic search results for the most recent news. The addition of a digital platform that adds a premium experience isn't particularly new, as CNN already added a straight streaming option for its news called CNN Plus, but that initiative failed spectacularly and ended up being discontinued after only a few months. So, what's going to change with this new online content that CNN seems eager to push onto its users? Well, there are a few options, but neither seems particularly impressive. Even if all 420,000 viewers switch to CNN's new subscription plan, the numbers wouldn't add up. At $4 per month, that would generate just $1.68 million monthly, or even less if subscribers opted for the discounted annual plans. For comparison, CNN's cable TV ad revenue alone is estimated at $2.7 million per day, meaning the subscription model would be a drop in the bucket compared to traditional TV earnings. But let's assume this subscription model isn't just for CNN's existing TV audience, it also attracts new subscribers who want access to CNN's news articles but don't watch the channel. The key demographic for ads and news, age 20 to 49, includes around 128 million people in the US. If, in a perfect scenario, every single one of them subscribed at $4 per month, that would generate $5.76 billion per year, nearly quadrupling CNN's current revenue, assuming no additional costs. Now let's apply CNN's audience share to the entire US adult population. The US adult population is estimated at 260 million people, but CNN's current primetime rating share is below 1%, sitting around 0.4%. Using this rating, if all 260 million adults were watching TV at the same time, CNN would attract just over 1 million viewers, a tiny fraction of the total audience. If CNN's rating share increased to 1%, viewership would rise to 2.6 million people, a significant improvement over current numbers, but still far from its peak years. If all 2.6 million viewers subscribed to CNN's online platform, it would generate $10.4 million per month, a solid boost over previous estimates, but still not enough to fully replace traditional TV revenue. In the end, cable TV advertisements are practically keeping CNN afloat, with licensing agreements likely being its second largest revenue source. CNN's attempts to anchor itself in the digital era seem counterproductive at best. Its declining reputation and viewership make meaningful growth on any other platforms nearly impossible. Just think about it, 420,000 YouTube subscribers is nothing compared to the big names in digital media. Ultimately, CNN's survival hinges on its advertisers. As the cost of advertising on a declining media format outweighs the benefits, brands will start pulling out. And when that happens, CNN may go off the air permanently. Do you think CNN can survive in the streaming era, or is it only a matter of time before it disappears? And what do you think is the biggest reason for its decline? Competition, changing media habits, or something else? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now go check out the real reason why Starbucks is failing, or click on this video instead.